Hello, YouTube. My name is Matthew, and I wanted to get a little rant out of my system about coronavirus and current events. I was just curious, so I've been keeping a close eye on the statistics for coronavirus. And the number of cases in the United States, my country of birth and residence, is over 2.5 million, and the number of deaths in the United States is 126,369. Now, that is atrocious. That is horrific. That is absolutely insane. The negative... There aren't enough negative adjectives in the English language for me to communicate my bafflement and rage. A large responsibility rests on the U.S. government. I mean, our current president, Donald Trump, thought it was a good idea to disband a task force trained specifically for pandemics that the Obama administration had created. He basically said, "Okay, bye now. It's nice knowing you. You had a spot in the government. Bye now." Our leaders in the House and Senate have not passed enough aid for the American people. They've passed some, granted. The stimulus checks did come in for those that were eligible. And for the most part, the economy has temporarily been nationalized, which is what should have happened. And so I'm not saying that the government has done nothing. I am saying that the government hasn't done enough. I'm also saying that the government has been acting. The government has not been proactive during this crisis. It has been reactive. That's a huge reason for the fact that the U.S. is one of the worst places to be in terms of the coronavirus, is because we didn't prepare ahead of time. We didn't. The warnings that were being talked about weren't taken seriously. We did not, go into quarantine and close down the schools and close down restaurants and shops early enough. It was not... We weren't quick enough to... Our response wasn't quick enough, in other words. We were slow in our response. We have a buffoon in the White House. He's probably the worst for most people I could think of that could be running the country right now, that could be running the United States of America during a pandemic. He's probably one of the worst people who could be running it right now. And I know this will bothers some people, but he doesn't listen to the experts. Now, I'm not saying you always listen to the experts, but in the case of a pandemic, I think you listen to the experts. And, other countries have not, their death count or their death toll is far less than ours. Now, I acknowledge that we are a larger country, so that will have an effect on the numbers. But, South Korea has done a very good job tackling the coronavirus. I think most European countries have done pretty well. France, for example, has had 504,000 deaths due to the coronavirus. Switzerland has had 1,962 deaths from coronavirus. UK, they've actually had quite a few. They've had over 50,000. My point is, though, that these deaths, all of these deaths, and according to, I was watching NBC News the other night, and the anchor said that in about a month, the United States could hit 150,000 deaths. So what I'm trying to say is, all of those deaths were not inevitable. All of those deaths, or a good portion of those deaths, could have been prevented if we had responded quicker, if we had behaved proactively. And I feel bad in some sense, because it's really taken it's really taken all of these deaths from coronavirus. It's really taken the death of George Floyd and the recurrent police brutality and all of these protests and all of this looting and this rioting. It's taken all of that for me to realize how difficult of a position the human race is in. And I certainly don't have all the answers. And I host a podcast. It's called Beyond Talking Points. You can find it pretty much on any podcatcher. I host it with my friend Matthew. My name is also Matthew. This is a shameless plug, but I have a point. On that podcast, it's a news and politics podcast, and I call myself a radical leftist. I'm not quite sure exactly what ideological banner you would fit me best. I think it would be something along the lines of anarcho-communist or libertarian Marxist. But, we need to revolutionize the way we understand human society, and we need to it's a need. We can't. This path we're going down. We can't sustain. And so, I call myself a radical leftist for the reason that I think we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to really think about what kind of society we want, what kind of society we can have. We need to think about people's relation to work, people's how are relationships and marriage going to work? How is education going to work? How are what are people's relationship to the arts and the sciences? What are people's relationship to knowledge? How are careers and jobs? How are is information? How are we going to keep information as free or as democratic as possible? It's, and I suppose one of the reasons I haven't labeled myself exactly is, because I don't have all the answers, and I don't think we can just put the situation. There aren't any mathematical formulas that we just fill out, and it's like, oh, boom, there's the answer. No need to debate it any longer. Here's the answer. Here's what we need to do. Then we're gonna go do it, and everything will be hunky dory. So, and then there was the death of George Floyd. Really was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think not only are we dealing with a pandemic, not only is the economy in a awful state, there was this tragedy that went on, and then people just like, well, they had it. They were done. So people have taken to the streets. There have been the peaceful protesters, and then there have been the people who have not been so peaceful. There have been people who have been smashing in car windows and destroying stores, stealing, looting, rioting. I'm against all the looting and the rioting and the smashing in car windows. I'm against all this needless destruction. That really should be it really should be obvious. It's kind of silly for me to even come out against that stuff, but anyway, I will say that much. But the anger that these protesters feel is justified, and I think that cannot be forgotten. Just because there are some people who are behaving atrociously and taking advantage of a difficult situation to, get a flat screen TV, doesn't mean we can forget that the anger of the protesters is justified, because we have a political system which is failing us. And if you think the real people that are getting hurt in all these in all of this stuff going on is not people like Donald Trump. It's not people like Joe Biden. It isn't the elites. And I'm not trying to do an us versus them dichotomy, but it's not the elites that are getting hurt the most. It is the janitor across the street. It is the elementary school teacher. It is the people who are working in fast food. When it comes to getting hurt economically or getting coming down with the coronavirus, those are the kinds of people. It is the working class that will get hurt the most. And I suppose that, in an aside, it's the one reason that I find the looting and rioting so heartbreaking. It is, and I kind of said this on my podcast, it's poor people hurting poor people, basically. It's the poor businessmen that will get hurt the most. And so, I think about, I'm sure if you spend any time on the internet, you have either heard of the intellectual dark web, or you follow certain figures in the intellectual dark web, or you consider yourself a part of the intellectual dark web. And I have some substantial disagreements with certain members of the intellectual dark web. But there's a reason that they're gaining traction. There's a reason that they're gaining listeners. There's a reason that they're gaining popularity, that their podcasts are listened to, that their books are read. There's a reason for all that, and it's because our society is crumbling. I mean, and I'm trying not to sound eschatological. I'm trying not to sound like the a guy on the edge of the street with a sign saying the end is nigh. I'm really not trying to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy, and I don't think that our situation is hopeless. But I'm reminded of the Weinstein brothers were interviewed by Dave Rubin, and Eric Weinstein, the mathematician, physicist, economist, polymath, said something interesting. He said, if we implemented libertarian policies across the board, society would fail for game theoretic reasons. If we implemented conservative policies across the board, it would fail for game theoretic reasons. If we implemented liberal policies across the board, it would fail for game theoretic reasons. If we implemented socialist policies across the board, it would fail for game theoretic reasons. Actually, no, wait, I'm sorry. I think that was Brett Weinstein. I apologize. I think that was Brett Weinstein who said that. But the point is, I can agree with that in the sense that I think we need to completely change the way we view society. We need to, and I think we need to do it now. Nuclear war is a problem now. It really, people had felt like it really hadn't been since the fall of the Berlin Wall, but, in some sense that problem is resurfacing. Climate change is a real issue. How to run a successful economy, that's becoming more and more of an issue. So, I don't have all the answers. I really don't. And so I don't want to come across as someone, pointing in the stands and laughing at the football team for doing everything wrong. And I've been, in terms of the all of this stuff going on, I've been very fortunate. I don't know anyone who has had the coronavirus, friend or family. I myself, as far as I know, have not gotten the coronavirus. My family is solidly middle class, so I can't really say I've been hurt too much. I'm a college student, so that kind of means I'm poor by definition, but I mean, I've been pretty fortunate in this situation. So I can't give you a sob story. I can't give you I can't really talk about any of this stuff from my personal experience. There have been some looting and rioting and protests in my town, but I haven't participated in any of them because I'm kind of a recluse. But I don't own a small business or anything, or I haven't had any property damaged by anybody. So I've been very fortunate. It has to be said. But I can still look at this situation or that we all find ourselves in, and realize the sheer chaos that is going on around us. The linguist and psychologist Steven Pinker released a book a few years ago titled Enlightenment Now. In that book, he was making the argument that the world really isn't as bad as people think it is, and if you really look at things, if you really look at the details, if you really look at the whole picture, human life is as good as it's ever been, and it's the interpersonal violence has gone down drastically. Poverty is decreased. A good portion of people around the globe, are educated to some extent. They can read and write and do arithmetic. So he kind of goes down all these points about, well, really, if you get to the if you really think about it, the world really isn't as bad as people think it is, and it's really the news media, makes people think the world is a worse place than it is, and I think the internet is partly to blame. But since the Enlightenment, things have gradually progressed. Now, I think that's true. Since the Enlightenment, human society has gradually progressed and gotten better and better. But I don't think that Steven Pinker appreciates the new difficulties that our species faces. I don't think that I just disagree with the way he is framing the matter. I can understand why he frames the matter the way he does, but I disagree with it, because I do think there is a lot wrong with the world, and I think it's not there are a lot of problems that really can't be hand-waved away by just saying, well, poverty has improved. And I'm not trying to straw man his argument. You can read his book, and I respect him and his work highly. So yeah, that's probably about it for now. I'm gonna try to upload more to my channel. I hope to, kind of turn my channel into a news and politics commentary channel. Cover the news and different cover other more maybe academic topics, and I'm just lazy and sometimes have trouble forcing myself to do work, but I had something to say, and I wanted to get it out there. So thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you soon. Take care.